So, welcome to How to Follow Your Passion. That's another episode with Evelyn. And the funny thing is, I don't know you since such a long time compared with the two other people I interviewed. But it feels like as if I would know you much longer. So I think we met last year, I don't know, probably in May or something like that, in the Frug, which is
maybe a little bit earlier.
Right.
Before the festival already, I knew you, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we met in Frug in St. Ives in the Arts Club, which is an open stage for poets, musicians and performers and whatnot.
Yes.
And I love your poems.
Thank you.
And I'm really, for me, it's about, because I think there are so many interviews about people, who are successful, and it's all about success, which I think is brilliant. I love watching those videos too, but I feel like that every one of us has something to say, and I'm interested in my friends who follow their passion, how they found their passion to start with. And I found in the two other interviews that there were so many insights I was so grateful for. So I'm very curious of what you have to say. So I have the feeling you found your passion when you were very young.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Right.
So I talked to the paper. I wrote things down, and I was listening to lots of music all the time. So without me noticing, what I was writing had a rhythm.
Right.
And I wrote a lot. Lots of it was just diary, but within that there were some poems. And I didn't even know that for sure. And I met somebody who was the editor of a literary magazine. And I sort of confided like a big secret that I write.
Right.
And he said, show me. And he immediately published 3 poems.
Wow.
I was 15. And then I had my first public reading, which was like 5 or 7 people in the audience. And it was the beginning of something. I didn't have any confidence at all because there wasn't anybody who believed in me. I was very alone, and I knew I always loved literature. I always loved language. I was always reading. I loved Kafka, and very soon after that I discovered Beckett, and lots of. I was always reading, and it was my only experience of success was in school was about literature and writing essays, and the literature teacher said that my writing is very good, and that was sort of, and also English. I learned English like very, very quickly, very easily. So I knew very early that my strong point was language.
Right.
And all the other things, I'm very clumsy and I'm not sporty or anything. So it stood out. So I knew whatever I do will have to do with language. But I didn't have the confidence for a long time to call myself a writer or a poet. And that slowly changed when I came to England and did A-levels in Oxford.
You lived in Vienna before,
yes.
So that magazine which published you was in Vienna as
yes,
well? Yeah.
Yes, and it was under my maiden name. And then I got married when I was 19, and since then I'm Holloway. And then it was like a new life, and I was still didn't have any confidence. It was very scary to live on my own. I didn't know all the practical things about living on your own, but the people I was surrounded by were very encouraging. And again, I had a literature teacher who was very encouraging, and I wrote in English, and I worked for the Oxford Poetry Press, not as a writer, more behind the scenes, but they did read some of my poems and gave me good feedback, and when I was 17, I had a conversation with Samuel Beckett, which made a big difference. I met him in a coffee shop.
But wait a minute, you said you went to Oxford to study when you were 19.
No.
No?
I went to Oxford when I was 16.
Right.
And I didn't study at the university, I only did A-levels. You came with 16. I got married when I was 19.
Right. Okay. So
Yes.
So you came with 16.
Yes.
And then you start. How long did you stay in Oxford?
3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
And when you were you were there for 1 year when you met.
Yes.
Samuel Beckett, which is kind of amazing. I know your poem.
Yeah.
And maybe you can read it to us at the end of the interview or something.
Yes.
But it's just, who can, this is just such an amazing encounter, isn't it?
It is because
it's crazy.
Because I read absolutely, apart from maybe 2-3 things that are not translated from the French, so I don't know French, but I had read everything already then. I absolutely loved his work, and I had read everything, and I couldn't believe it that he was, like I was here and he was there, I said to myself, if you don't do this, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Obviously, it took a lot of courage, little teenager, beginner, talking to the big Beckett, but I just absolutely had to do it. And
so he was sitting in a coffee shop.
Yeah, he was.
And you recognized him, and you took all your courage and went over to him to talk to him.
You can't not recognize Beckett. He had such a significant face, even if you haven't read him, you would still recognize.
Right.
But it was, and the big surprise was because on the photographs he always looked so grumpy,
Yes.
And I was sort of preparing myself, him saying something like, "How dare you disturb me?" and "Don't you see I'm busy?" or whatever. He was reading the newspapers, so he wasn't that busy, but he wasn't like that at all. All this grumpiness disappeared and was replaced by a big smile. And he was completely open and generous and not arrogant at all, like you would imagine with such a big personality.
Yes.
And I think part of it was that he was also writing in a foreign language and living in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he recognized that in me a little bit, that bit about himself, and he recognized something in my poems which were not good at all then. They were very, maybe too private. It was all about being lonely and being so on, but he recognized something in them, and he said, "You just need practice.
Yeah.
You've got it. If you've got something to say. You've got your own language, your own poetry inside you. It's just a matter of craft. like as a child, when you learn to write, you have to practice it, and it's like that. There is too many articles and buts and ifs and so on, and that is something you learn with time. Now I have like an inbuilt filter already for these words,
Yes.
and they let them out and leave them out, if it's grammatically possible. But that was like a big change for me, because then slowly I started to think of myself as a poet.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had a career as such, but I get a lot of satisfaction from performing. I was in an English-speaking poetry group in Vienna for about 17 years. They also sometimes wrote together, but they performed together a lot, and also internationally. Seattle, India, Prague, Geneva, Slovenia, lots of places. And so that gave me a lot of satisfaction, and also performed with music, together with music, and then here at the Frug and in the festivals, and so.
So, did you stay? Because I know, that he took you out for dinner and stuff, and obviously we will hear more about it in the poem because it describes it so beautifully. But did you stay in contact with him after that?
I was too shy.
Right.
I wanted to ask him for his address to write, but I was too shy.
Right. And was it like, what I find so amazing that sometimes, like it can be like these few words, just practice, which can have such a big impact on us. Somebody comes into our lives and says something, and I wonder, do you have that, his voice kind of still in your head?
Yes.
And is it something you go back to when you kind of struggling with a poem or something like that? Is he like his inner mentor?
Yes.
Your inner mentor?
Yes, it is not when I'm struggling with a poem, it is when I'm not writing.
Right.
Because when I'm struggling with a poem, I'm working.
Yes.
And then that I don't have a problem with that. I stay with it till it's okay.
Yes.
Till it's okay. But there are phases when I don't write, when I have the feeling I have nothing to say, I've said it all and I'm only repeating myself.
Yes.
And that's when he comes up, because he said, don't stop. And he said, never mind about success.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
I think, that's really interesting because like in all the interviews so far, I really asked, because we often, we think passion is something which is just once you found it, is there. And it's not that easy. You lose it, and you have these times you feel like you've lost your mojo. Everyone knows that. And it's so interesting to see what everyone is actually doing to regain that. So it seems like one of your practices is that you retrieve your inner Samuel Beckett.
And also my experience is, if I let it go for a while, if I don't, because I used to sort of get panicky when I wasn't writing and wrote just to write, and then it was just really bad what I wrote. So now if I have the feeling there isn't anything, I leave it for a while. I read, I walk, whatever else I do, go to the cinema, whatever else. And then something happens, can be something really small, a conversation, a film, something I read.
Like a trigger.
Yeah, something happens. Or sometimes painful experience with other people, or something happens, and then I start again, and it is if you are not a successful writer in the sense of career, it's not so nice. But the positives, well, I would love it if somebody was waiting for it. If there was
a deadline or something.
Yeah, I love deadlines. I participated in lots of conferences and things, and I love that about lots of different things. And I love that because then you have to do it.
Yes.
But if if you don't have that, then it can take as long as it takes, which is, on the other hand, you produce less, but it is good because you can say to yourself, okay, right now it doesn't work, so I do whatever else I do, and then you just have to wait till it works again. And if you don't have a deadline, you can.
So okay, just to be clear on that, so you realize just writing for writing doesn't work for you, because
No.
And so you kind of give it a break, do something else, and then something comes like a trigger.
Yes.
So, but then at the same time, you also said that you sometimes have this, when you're not writing, that you have, that voice of Samuel Beckett. So,
Yes.
so when are the times when you have that? Are these two different times?
No, but it doesn't always have the effect immediately that I sit down and write.
But it's like a little sign.
It is like something that encourages me, and also the feedback I get, of course, when I'm on Noble Square or in the Frug or whatever. I get very positive feedback, and it has a lot to do with confidence, because it is very difficult to be self-confident if you've done it for such a long time and you have so little to show for it in terms of publications and plays that haven't been performed, script that hasn't been filmed, etc. So it's difficult to have this contradiction that on the one hand people come up to me and say, thank you for your beautiful poetry and we really enjoyed that, and get really good feedback, and on the other hand, if I send my stuff around, nothing happens.
Yes.
And it made me write very little. I mean, I do still write, and I have this project now about my aunt in Israel, and that I am writing that because I want to write it, because I think she's an extremely interesting woman, and because it is also good for me, because she's like, she puts a positive light on my past, so it is not all black.
I want to go to that in a minute.
Yes.
But I just want to, because I think you're touching a very interesting point many people are struggling with, is that, so in a sense, because I know that feeling, in a sense what you're saying, it's kind of when you don't get the recognition, the outside recognition, it is quite hard to find that, sometimes to find that motivation to keep on writing. So you're saying if you would have had maybe more recognition, it would have been easier to keep on writing. And I think it's an interesting one, because on the one hand, someone like Samuel Beckett said, just do it and practice, but obviously he also had
relatively
recognition.
Relatively
so you never know in the end of the day,
I mean, he wasn't as old as I am, but he was your age when he became famous,
right,
for Waiting for Godot.
Yeah. I think, and that's the fine line, isn't it? Because that's why I find that interesting to talk to. Like, you know, there are so many brilliant, talented people out there who are doing it even though they don't have the outward success. And in a sense, you know, that's even more interesting, you know, because it's the thing to keep going. Because
yeah, well, I do, but not always. I don't. I have times when I just don't have anything to say, you know. I don't want to write. I don't know. I got up and had a cup of coffee and a slice of toast. You know. I mean, it is almost like a present. You know, when sometimes poems arrive completely finished and all I have to do is write them down.
Right.
And sometimes there is something particularly I want to say and to write about, and then I work at it. But I enjoy that. I don't mind having to write several drafts and things like that. Because that's the kind of work I like to do. So I don't have a problem with that. What I don't like is long time without any new ideas or anything. Then I just feel I'm wasting my time, basically. You know. So, and you get aware, you become aware that the time is not endless.
Yes.
You know? So I am much happier when I am working, when I'm in the process of working, than when I'm not. And what also, for instance, at the moment, at the moment I'm reading the letters of Beckett, which are 4 big books, and there's lots of inspirational stuff in there because he talks a lot about his work. And sometimes some things I read inspire me. John Berger I read, not just because he died, I've been reading him for years now. And that's very inspirational as well, the way he talks about art.
So is that like a jump off point for you sometimes when you read something like that?
Yes. I write down quotes, and then sometimes the quotes trigger something.
Yes, I've heard that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I find so amazing, it sounds like, you know, that Beckett was already like your inner mentor before you met him.
Yes, I have read everything.
Yes, and then you had that one really very...
I have read everything, and I didn't understand everything, of course, because when I was in my teens, I only had the English from school. It wasn't like now when I have spent so much time living in England. And so when I first read Beckett, it was with dictionary, and you know, and also I didn't have the life experience to understand Beckett. You know, I mean, you have to have a certain amount of experience and to understand some literature.
Sure.
Yeah. But it spoke to me, and I completely got it. I got the essence. I might not have understood everything, but I got the essence of what he's talking about because of my existential situation. The images he found for this situation, for this being thrown into life and just having to deal with whatever you're given. You know.
So you are writing mainly in English, aren't you?
I'm writing in English, yes.
I mean, you have translated some poems.
I have translated. The book is bilingual, so I have translated the poems into German. And at the moment, I'm actually writing in German because First of all, the language with my aunt is mainly German, and also I want to try and turn this into a radio play, and I think I have more chance in Vienna to get that produced in here. I'm not famous there either, but there are a few people who know who I am.
So that book, what's the name of your book where you have your poems in English and German?
Shadowlights.
Shadowlights.
Schattenlichter.
And where can you get that?
You can get it either through the internet or
on Amazon,
or in Penzance bookshop at the edge of the world. They have it.
Well, since I assume and hope that many people from all over the place watch this, so you can get it on Amazon, and it's by Evelyn Holloway, and it's called, say that again?
Shadowlights.
Shadowlights.
Shadowlights. Yeah. Yes, and
worthwhile getting it. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
That's it over there, isn't it?
Yes.
And so that project, because people don't really, they've heard now the project you're working on right now.
Yes.
With your aunt. So explain it so that somebody who never kind of heard about it.
Yes.
How did you get the idea to start with?
Her name is Judith, and she was the only positive experience, the only positive relationship in my childhood, and still is until today, as far as my family is concerned. And she lives in Israel, but she used to spend the summers in Vienna, and she sometimes used to come on the winter holidays with us as well. So she spent quite a lot of time in Vienna, and she was married to my mother's brother, and I was 3 when I first met her, and there was this huge affection coming from her, and that was always there all my life. And she had a very interesting life also. She's a very interesting woman, and so I thought last time I visited her, which was the year before, I thought I want to do this, and I want to not visit her once, but stay like for 2 weeks and visit her more often and interview her and
about her life.
And that's what I did, and I visited her 10 times in 12 days, and it didn't quite go as I wanted, because she
never does.
because she wanted to know about me too. So
Sure.
I told her about St. Ives and everything, but I kept sort of going back to her. So I do have material about her life. I was mainly interested in the time before I knew her, because then about her later life I knew quite a lot already. But she survived the war in Montevideo with her family in Uruguay, where I've never been. So I asked her questions about that, and things about her I didn't know. And one of the things I love about her is her honesty. She doesn't make herself better, or
right.
She's very honest about herself and about everything. So that way you also know that the affection is also honest, because she doesn't pretend. No.
Yeah. So what was the most interesting thing you found out you didn't know?
About her childhood, and about the relationships in her family, and about living in Montevideo, and about her first marriage, and and the things that happened before I knew her. That was the newest for me, because after that, of course, I knew quite a lot of what she experienced when she was already married to my uncle.
Sure.
And we also visited quite often in Israel, and I often stayed with her also. And then when I was grown up, I spent 2 years in Jerusalem, which is only an hour away from Tel Aviv, so then I saw a lot of her in that time also. And so it was always like very special when she was around, because she transformed the whole family situation for me, because I was always, I couldn't get on with any of them, and there was a lot of aggression, and I was completely outside. And she also said that that's also important, because she is also a witness, because after a while you start doubting your memory.
Sure.
And you start saying to yourself, was it really that bad, or am I making it worse in my memory? And she said she was very, very angry about the way they were with me, and that they didn't let me into the family, and they didn't love me, and they didn't. And so it was also, for me, it was also a confirmation that I'm not making these things up, and that they are true, that they really happened like this. And she was always taking my position and always trying to do the best for me as she could, and I was very aware of that, and it was, I mean, she has of course relationships with the rest of the family too, but I had always had a special position for her.
So was the motivation for doing that interview to strengthen that special bond between?
No, that was already there. No, I wanted to document. I wanted to document her life.
Right.
That was the one thing. I wanted to document her life, and the other thing is, it makes me feel better about the past.
Right. Okay. So
Because
it's like rewriting a little bit the.
It is a little bit
past.
like that, because it's like, you know, there was at least one person.
Yes.
Who she said, she kept saying, you know, I love you just the way you are, you know, just exactly the way you are, you know, and nobody said that to me before.
So I assume it's a project which is really close to your heart.
It is, yes, but it is not about that. That is part of the motivation.
Yes.
But it is not so much about my emotions. It should be about her.
Yes.
But she kept saying this, you know. I didn't provoke her to say this, but every third sentence, you were so wonderful, and I loved you so much, and I still love you so much, and now you're even more beautiful than you were then. And nobody ever called me beautiful. I was always fat and this and that, but anything but beautiful, you know. So, but she means it, because she doesn't have any reason to say that she doesn't mean.
But you also I suppose you probably already knew that before. Obviously you have the feeling that her life as such, and she as a person, is interesting enough.
Yeah.
To make this, as you said, into radio play, because that's your ultimate goal, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm doing two things. I'm writing a story.
That's what you're doing right now?
Yeah, which is kind of new for me, because I have only written prose in the shape of essays until now.
So it's a new challenge?
So it's a new challenge, which I like. And what I'm doing now, because as a poet, what I do usually, I go straight to the essence. I don't describe the panorama.
Yes.
I go straight to the core of things. So what I'm doing now is to take in the panorama. So that means I'm not only in the story, I'm not only talking about the interviews, I'm talking about the whole trip, and other people I met, and walking on the beach, and the whole thing in the story.
Yes.
And the radio play will be like a portrait of her.
Right.
And
so it's more honed in the radio play. In a sense.
And the idea of the radio play came because the last time I visited her, she started singing. And I thought it would be lovely if it ever gets produced, which is a big if, of course. But I thought it would be lovely if at the end they would play her original singing.
Right.
So, which is only a couple of minutes or something. So, so that gave me the idea of a radio play, so that be able to use her voice. And also, it's also something I've never done. So I like the idea of
venturing into the new.
Yes, after so many decades of writing poetry. I mean, I will always write poetry. I love poetry, but I also love the theatre. I've written some plays, one of which was produced, but the others were read, as you know, at the festival, but they were not produced as plays. So that is something I would really like to happen. One, the short play I wrote might be turned into an animated film, but there are people who want to do it, but the question is if they get the funding, etc.
So for that project you're working on right now, have you given yourself like a rough time frame, like for example you're going to be finished by end of this year or something like that?
I think I will be finished by the end of this year, unless something absolutely major happens that stops me from working. But I think I will be finished definitely with the story. And then I think once I have the story, the radio play will be relatively easy because it is already in there.
Yes.
You know, it's like just leaving out the rest, really, basically. Yes. And it's I don't know exactly. I don't know whether I'm going to use the questions as a structure, or whether I'll just take the answers without the questions, which is probably better. But of course there's a lot of repetition, so a lot of it will be... My problem is often that things get too short, because I have the tendency of not describing and just going right into the core of things and not saying what people are wearing and what the room looks like and so on, what the weather's doing, and so I go straight inside. So I have to be careful because I think it has to be, I don't know, 50 minutes or something.
Well, I can't wait to hear something of it.
Yeah. I will translate. I will do it the other way around.
Yes.
I will translate it into English when I've got it, and that won't take long because I'm so used to living in two languages, and I also translate for money. I also translate other people. So, so that is no problem.
Yay! So I would love to finish the interview with a question. Yeah, the poem we do as well. But I would love to know your advice for people who either haven't found their passion yet or have lost it. What is your advice?
It depends a little where in life they are. Where if they are young people, then they can give themselves time, and they can see what they enjoy most, what makes them feel like they are going into the deep, into their own universe when they are doing it. When they are not doing it in order to please somebody or for commercial reasons. They are doing it because they want to do it, they need to do it. It doesn't have to be art, it can be anything. It can Some people it is sewing or cooking or decorating. There are lots of everything can be a passion. And I think if you find something where you can feel that you can use who you are, and in order to do it, you don't have to say, I am like this, but I'm doing this which is not according to who I am. But you can say, I am like this and I'm doing this out of who I am, out of the expression of me as a human being in the world. And if you are lost, if you have lost your passion, it depends on the process. There are times in life when there is no space for creativity because you have to deal with something really difficult. Can be anything, separation, illness, anything. There are times when you need all your energy to get into the next day, and then you have to allow yourself that time and to deal with. But on the other hand, it can also speed up the process of getting over whatever you have to get over, because it brings you back to yourself.
It does.
It brings you back in some ways. I know this sounds strange now, but in some ways I sometimes like it when I have a flu or something and I have to stay at home, because it brings you back to yourself, and you remember that what other people do or don't do, you are still you, and you still have your resources, you have your language or your colors or whatever it is you do and stopped doing. So it can remind you that you don't stop being who you are because somebody stopped seeing you, looking at you. And that took me decades to learn that, because it always so important what other people felt about me, and whether they not necessarily recognized me as a poem, but as a poet, but as a human being.
As a poem, it sounds nice too.
Yes. But I felt invisible when people didn't phone or whatever.
Sure.
And that is not the case anymore. First of all, because I have really wonderful friends, so I never ever feel like I'm completely invisible, even if I'm... And also I have that experience now. I have the experience that I can fill my own world. I mean, of course, it's always great to be with friends, but I think it's if you know that these people are in the world, then that is enough to keep you going. You don't have to hear it every day. Don't have to. But that, in my case, that took a long time, because I didn't believe. I'm sure I got on many people's nerves because I had to be reassured all the time. And that's not the case anymore.
Thank you, Evelyn. So just to conclude,
Yes.
what I heard from what you just said is that sometimes you have times where life just takes over and you just have to accept it. But it's a fine balance, because sometimes if you allow yourself to just do the work, whether it's writing or whatever it is, it can actually speed up the process, and you come back to yourself, and you find yourself, and you kind of, and I think everybody has to find that balance themselves. And the other thing is what you said, if you are finding your passion, look for the things you can't live without, you really need to do, and they define who you are. And the other thing which really stuck with me was that, and I think that's also really applicable for many people, find your own source of inspiration. And I think for you that was Beckett, like a mentor. And so it can be, it doesn't need to be someone you meet actually. It can be a book, it can be one person,
it can
a writer,
be many things.
It can
it wasn't
be many
only
things.
Beckett,
but it seems to be a main space.
He was the encouragement.
Yes,
he was the encouragement.
So thank you very much. We do the poem separately.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, if you want to keep informed about when new episodes are coming up, please subscribe to my newsletter, and you can do that on my webpage, anjakersten.com, and I hope I see you soon. Take care, bye-bye.
Meeting. Oxford, October 1973. St. Michael's Road. A lane in the town centre, along uneven cobbles, past gabled houses, and up old winding stairs. The Nosebag. Long tables full of students, lecturers, tourists. Music in the background, maybe Chopin. I sit down with my pot of tea, take books from my bag, Chaucer, statistics, a dictionary. I'm 17. Discovering writing, I scribble signs to prove my existence. The echo in my head, the only answer in a world full of questions. I come here most days after college. Routine calms me down. This is an island of safety. Suddenly I see his face step down from book covers. A furrowed face, a landscape of thought. I waited for Godot, saw people stuck in bins. So many figures of his universe, they were my relatives, damned to exist alone, but forced to speak incessantly, tell as it is to nobody. And there he sits and drinks his tea like me, his face buried in the times. I summon all my courage as I move towards him. No idea what to say, just know I have to meet him. He puts down his paper and smiles. Sorry to disturb you, I had to. He points to a chair. I sit down and say my name. He looks at me as if he sees all I was and all I'll ever be. My fear falls away. The cage door opens. I talk about his work and what it means to me. I say to me it is all poetry, but words to touch, to hear and see. Surprised by this passion, he asks, "Are you a student?" I study for my A-levels, but I write poetry and want to write a play. You write in English? Yes, this is my home now. Can I have a look? I spread my papers on the table. Sorry about my handwriting. Can't be worse than mine. He reads concentrated. It seems to take forever, and just before my heart bursts, he looks at me. You've got a lot to say, and your own way of saying it. You have to keep working, no matter what. It's just a craft that needs work. Only a matter of practice. I can't believe what I hear. My head is spinning. He smiles again. May I take you to dinner tonight? Yes, what an honor, but... But what? I only have jeans. I had to pack quickly. And if we go and buy a dress, a souvenir? No, you don't need to. It will be a pleasure. And so he buys a dress for me, green with splinters of glass stitched to the front. Sam and I go to a bistro and talk like old friends. Since then, I trust my words to fly like birds into the windows of my mind.